Welcome back to Wizard Supercoach. Weekend's finally here. Nice to get a break. Hope you're enjoying yours. We're now under 50 days until round zero. Now, anyone that knows me knows I'm not a huge fan of the whole round zero concept, but I guess it is still footy and we do get a sneak peek. So at this point in the season when you're footy starved, kind of looking forward to that like everyone else. Now, you're probably wondering what the hell this is on the screen. Obviously it's a table I've made. Now, I want to start by saying that I don't think that this is available anywhere else. So if you think that this kind of thing is able to be found somewhere else, let me know in the comments. I haven't copied it. I just haven't been able to find it anywhere. So yeah, it'd be pretty embarrassing if it is available, especially given how much time this took crunching the numbers. But what it is it's basically a risk assessment, I think, on midfielders and how much they rely on CBA percentage. So the guys down here, obviously, they're your most risky guys. Now, it's not black and white. It's obviously different players, different teams, things like that. But these guys up here are your least risky in terms of CBAs. So the way it works is each player has been given a CBA average by percentage, obviously. Now, this doesn't include finals or games where they were subbed early or started as the sub. And, I've left in a few games where players were subbed out very late in the game or came on very early as a sub, basically played a full game. So that's fine. And there are some players in here that, look, I'm not necessarily looking at, but people are talking about them. So I thought I'd include them. It's pretty much every midfielder over 500k, minus Blake Acres because he doesn't get CBAs at all, and then anyone else that's somewhat Supercoach relevant or is being discussed. Each player has the CBA percentage, and this column here is then their average score when they receive over their CBA average. And then this is their average score when they get under their CBA average. So basically we're looking at which players are the most reliant on CBAs. So who has wiggle room if they lose some CBAs and who doesn't. I think, it shows which players are more risky and less risky. So I'll go through some. Callum Mills and a few other players I've included their 23 and 24 score. And then there's some players that are just their 23 score. Obviously, they didn't play in 24. But Callum Mills, so he did play in 24. He played a few games. I thought there was no point really just including 24 by itself because it's hard to get a read on what he was doing because he was kind of playing all over the place. He was being managed coming back from injury, low time on ground. We're not seeing the real Callum Mills there. So in 23... he was pretty much, whether he was above or below his CBA average, he was pretty much getting the same score. Curiously, he actually scored more when he went under his average. Now, there is obviously the players in green are all in that boat. I don't understand why. I can't tell you why that is, why they score more. My best guess is that maybe being at the coalface for large amounts, they get tired quicker or something. Obviously, there's some players like Dylan Moore here. He scores more. Excuse the pun, but he scores more when he's in there less. So his CBA average is only 17%. But when he's not in the midfield, he's up forward. So he's scoring better when he's getting the higher midfield time, the higher forward time. So he's not. He's not one of those picks where, he's not getting huge CBAs, we can't pick him. So that's long been the belief in Supercoach that higher CBAs is going to equal higher scores. And you can see here that in most cases it is true, but it's not always. Different teams, different midfield styles, all of that. Now there's teams like Fremantle and Port and Brisbane, I think, that have a lot of mouths to feed. This is where this comes in handy because, the percentages are likely to vary in those teams. And then this can show you that if a player is going to lose a few CBAs and stuff, it's not really going to affect them, or if it is going to. Now this, before I start going through the other players, I just want to talk about Brayshaw. I wasn't really looking at him too seriously until I saw this table. Fremantle, as I mentioned, there's a lot of mouths to feed. There's going to be variation in the CBAs week to week. He already gets 70%. If that drops, it's fine. He's basically going the same over and under his average. So this gives me confidence that I can pick him. And if there is down weeks where, say, Fife or someone comes in, or an Erasmus maybe gets a few more CBAs and Brayshaw gets less, it's not really going to affect him at all. And again, he's one of those that for some reason he scores slightly better, only slightly, when he gets slightly less CBAs. So yeah, that's what this is for. And hopefully you can get something out of it too. The fact of just landing on that pick for me kind of makes it feel worth it, even though this is definitely the most time consuming thing I've ever made for Supercoach. So guys like Heaney, obviously he scores a lot playing forward, so that explains that one. He scores goals, assists, things like that. He's going to be good, even if his CBAs drop off a bit. There was some big shocks though, like LDU. You would expect that if he's not getting bulk CBAs, he's not going to be able to score, but yeah, I can't explain this one. He's 15 points better off when he averages under that 82% CBAs. If anyone's got a solution, or can tell me why that is, because by the eye test, I wouldn't think that LDU or Libba in the same basket, but to a lesser extent, why they are scoring better with lower CBAs. Please let me know, because that could unlock more of the puzzle, I think. But I think this is a good start. Petrarca, we know, spends time forward, so that explains him. Will Ashcroft, this is really good. So for people looking to pick him, I know he has the bye. I've had people tell me not to pick him because of the bye. Every team's different. But for people looking at Ashcroft, this should be really good. This should give you confidence that, he's only averaging 28% CBAs, and it's almost certainly going to pick up this year, you would think. But even if it doesn't, he's still scoring well without them. He's another one that I don't understand how, but he's scoring actually better when he goes under 28% CBAs. I hope this is all making sense. It makes sense in my head, but I'm not a teacher or anything, so it's kind of hard to explain. Will Day, he's another one. He's almost certainly going to get the highest CBAs. Hawthorn love him. He's a great player. But this is good. It gives you a bit of insurance. Should they drop off a little bit, he'll be fine. The Bont, same with him. If he gets bevoed, he's fine. I don't understand how, but again, he somehow is scoring better when he's below his average CBAs. Probably because he spends time forward and kicks goals, I would say. Takes contested marks. He's an absolute beast. He's locked in my team. This is another nail in that coffin. He's not moving. He's the best player in the league. He should have 2 Brownlows. I'll stop. Sam Flanders, obviously, he played a lot off half back, more than in the middle. Still got 31% CBA, that's pretty good. But yeah, he can score fine without it. Jackson Mead, I haven't heard a hell of a lot of people talking about him, but I've included him because Port do have that really varying midfield, and I was discussing with a mate yesterday about, now this is interesting coming from a Crom supporter, but I think Port's midfield balance is beautiful. Such a good midfield. It's just a shame that they're probably lucky for us Crom supporters, but their forward and back line is fairly weak. So in the midfield, you'd think you got Willem Drew starting as that defensive kind of mid, and then you got Rosie and Butters in there. This is just me guessing as a Crom supporter, by the way. And then you got Wines and Horn Francis come in the second string. We couldn't work out off the top of our heads who was the 6th man for Port, who's going to be that 6th midfielder. It's actually Jackson Mead, which was somewhat of a shock. So he's got that 21% CBAs, and he's quite young. So, he can score all right when he's not, or not all right, but, his average is higher when he's not above that 21. Because he's so young, he's actually, I reckon, one to watch. If you're the 6th man and you're only young like that, there could be some value there on that pick. So I'm not saying to pick him, obviously, it's ridiculous, but definitely one to watch, just based on that alone. Holmes plays off halfback a lot, obviously we know, so he's going to score fine. His CBAs are probably going to pick up though, so yeah, he's one to watch as well. I did have him in my team. I think, pretty sure without looking that I've removed him now. I can't even remember. My team changes that much at this time of year. Tom Green, he's a bit of a shock. You wouldn't expect him to be, scoring better with a few less CBAs, but that's how it works. Again, I don't know how it works, but it's what the numbers say. So Warner, he's easy to explain. He scores goals out of the midfield. He obviously rests at half forward or something like that. Bit like Heaney. Sydney are a weird one. That could all change under Cox though, so But yeah, Brayshaw, already spoke about him. Sheasel, these guys pretty much break even no matter what. Sheasel and McRae. Does this though suggest that McRae possibly is not the slam dunk that people think he is, just because his CBAs are probably going to rise up? Now, in the last video, I kind of defended him against, like when it was compared to Bailey Smith, and said that Smith was the riskier one. This is kind of contradicting to what I talked about last time. This is only based on 2024 too for him, so I get that he was probably checked out very early in the year mentally. Probably had some pretty hard conversations with Bevo. But yeah, this would suggest that just when he gets the CBAs, he's not necessarily scoring higher, which kind of lines up with my eye test, just mine obviously. But I think that the game has gone past McRae. He's a bit slow, and he wasn't getting the CBAs because he's dropped off so much. It wasn't a case of he's dropped off because he's not getting the CBAs. So that's definitely one to think about now. I think there's going to be a lot more discussion about the McRae and Smith thing, probably right up until the season starts. I'm hoping that one of them just eliminates themselves in some way. Something pops up. Not an injury or anything, but something, so I don't have to pick him. But yeah, Smith is still probably the one that I'm looking at Antipod more. Shai Bolton, similar to McRae. This is only on his 2024 numbers, so he probably checked out pretty early in the season for different reasons. He had pretty high CBAs there for a forward, 53% on average. It doesn't really make a difference to his scoring. I didn't crunch his 2023 numbers, but probably would be a different story. I'm not sure. But yeah, he's probably slightly more risky than I even thought. Dunkley, you wouldn't expect to be pretty even like this, although he is for some reason. And Sinclair, you'd expect Sinclair probably to score better off halfback just based on the eye test more than being in the midfield. I think that was the belief a few years ago, was that we were waiting for him to go back to halfback. But yeah, lower CBAs, when he's below 30%, he scores about the same. Hunter Clark, I've included some people talking about him. He's pretty much even. 47% CBAs is higher than I would have thought. He could be a breakout for sure. But again, I'm not suggesting to pick him. There's not too much to talk about here. Not too much shocks in this area, I think. Dacos, the plantar fasciitis thing means that he might get less CBAs. I don't know. But he's going to be pretty good either way. Same as Dawson. Apparently he was training forward, and he's even been seen on the wing in match sim. This suggests that his score could drop off a bit. And with that Crows midfield, being a hardcore Crom Nuffy myself, I don't even know what it's going to look like. I expect Dawson might lose CBAs, to be honest. They got Peatling coming in. Neil Bullen's probably going to run through there. Draper, once he finally plays, he might not be there in round one by the sound of it, but yeah, Dawson I think is a weapon off halfback anyway. So if his CBAs drop off, you can't pick him. Unless he was I think tied permanently to halfback and he wasn't going to move. But again, there's many mouths to feed there, like Hinge coming, Laird now training off halfback. So yeah, Dawson I wouldn't be picking just based on the the danger of it, even though he's, in this first column here. Bailey Humphrey, he's not really Supercoach relevant, but I've seen people talking about him as a possible breakout contender. He only had, on average, the 7% CBAs. Like most young Gold Coast midfielders, he's probably being stunted by the fact that Gold Coast only really use 3 midfielders, which is Rao, Anderson and Took, which I think is to their detriment a bit. I mean, they're all good at what they do, but yeah, that second string midfield's not very strong for that reason. I think if you added all those CBA percentages together, I think that those 3 Gold Coast players are probably going to have the highest combined percentage out of any trio from any team. So Butters here, he's going to be the main man. So this is where this gets interesting, right? It would suggest that he's starting to get more risky than, these guys here. But because Butters is the main man, can't see his CBAs going down. It's not really too much of a risk, It's only for those... It's only more for those, third, fourth, even second midfielders, things like that. So Hayden Young here, he kind of needs the CBAs, or he's, if he drops below 65%, look at the numbers, like it's a 5-point loss. So, proceed with extreme caution on players like him. That's what this is for. Merritt kind of shocked me. I thought that he'd score better outside of CBAs. This is interesting because he's apparently been training a bit off half back. If that suggests that, because 80% is high for CBA percentage, if that drops off even a little bit, he's probably going to lose off his average. Yeah, I think what did he go at? About 115 average this year. It's probably going to drop him down to what this suggests is 110 maybe, unless he scores really good off half back, which could also happen. He's a great player, so yeah, interesting that one. There's not too much to talk about in this middle section here, I think. Maybe Cripps is a bit of a surprise. I thought that he'd be down here somewhere. If he's not in the CBA, he can't score. Doherty's another one. It's based on his 23 scores. Yeah, I wouldn't be going near him anyway, so I don't think I'm even going to talk about him. Bailey Smith. So, yeah, again, in that last video, I spoke about him and McRae and how the CBAs didn't necessarily mean Smith was going to be a sure thing, the increased CBAs. I mean, he's averaging 30% here. But this kind of tells a different story. As I said at the start, this certainly doesn't tell the whole story. There's just too many variables and stuff in AFL. So, yeah, the last set of stats suggested in the last video that he may not be the pick, but this is showing that he's better with the, he seems to score better here with more CBAs. So when he goes under that average, he's losing nearly 9 points. But again, with Geelong and Chris Scott and the fact he's coming back from an ACL, anything could happen. He's probably going to be managed. Chris Scott loves to rotate 20 different players through that midfield. If you've owned Geelong players before as a Supercoach, you know what I'm talking about. It's a hard watch. Sarong, he'll be fine. He's the least likely Fremantle mid to lose CBAs. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about this at all. Ed Richards, some suggesting that he's going to be a bit of a breakout. He's always teased. Can't trust Bevo. So this is where this comes in handy, right? So we know we can't trust Bevo. So Richards is probably not going to be getting 46 cent CBAs every game. Now he's dropping his average by nearly 10 when he goes under 46. So this is where this is handy. It suggests that Richards is a very risky pick. You can't be picking him with any real confidence because of Bevo or whatever. Or Bulldogs still have a fair few mouths to feed in that midfield. Laird's now training off the half back. He was only going at 50% CBAs this year, which is lower than what the eye test would suggest. The reason he's an interesting one is because he could become in round 6 DPP, and we've seen him score really well off half back before. So yeah, this isn't really too applicable to him, but yeah, he's an interesting one to watch for that reason, because if he does become a defender, like gets DPP, he could easily be top 8, he could easily be top 6. We've seen him do it before. Crouch is less reliant on CBAs than I expected. I thought he'd be down here somewhere. But that's just because he's a better player than people think. Horn Francis, this is somewhat of a worry. He gets bailed out. I said it, I think, in the last video. He gets bailed out by late goals and stuff in close games. I don't think there's going to be as much of that this year as unbiased as I can be. I expect the Port may drop off a little bit and not win as many games. Certainly not as many close ones. It's hard to follow that up. So he's going to be relying on CBAs a bit more here. Now we can see that when he goes below 54%, he's losing basically 12% score. 12 points score. So unless he's definitely getting those CBAs, which I think he'll get, but if it looks like he's not, then I'd be fading him, honestly. Now that might be controversial because, I mean, everyone has him, but if for some reason we saw that he was playing more forward in the practice games or something, I'd be getting seriously nervous. Because a 94 average, I mean, he still might be a top 6 to 8 mid, but it's not going to cut it at the price he's starting at. Luke Parker, I've gone with his 2023 scores. So he played a few games in 2024. Not really much point discussing the 24 ones. This gives a more accurate picture of him with CBAs, although it is nearly 2 years ago now. He's one that I suggested could be a replacement if you're going to antipod a Smith or a McRae. Yeah, I don't think he's going to average, like, he's not going to get the CBAs here, obviously, at North that he was getting at Sydney 2 years ago, but I can't see him averaging 90 in a team like North off the half forward either. So, yeah, I don't know. He's a real risky one, even more risky than I thought. Rivers, he could take a jump this year. I think he was fairly consistent last year. He just doesn't really have like a ceiling. Only 29% CBAs, but you would expect that Petrarca might spend more time forward to protect him. I don't know. Rivers is definitely like that next one to step up though in the Melbourne midfield. So I expect that his CBAs will probably increase. Yeah, so he's got, if he goes above that, we can see here that he's going to score pretty well. Definitely another one to keep an eye on. Still has a little bit of a floor problem, I think, but that's all right. Tom Stewart, I think he'll be used as a break glass in case of emergency type midfielder. People were banking on him getting these CBAs. I mean, he averaged 29 for the year. I just don't think he's going to get them as much. There's a lot of midfielders at Geelong, as I've discussed before. But yeah, I don't think you can pick him if he's not going to be getting that certain midfield time. We can see here that when he's just sitting down back, his average ain't that great. So yeah, I'd be fading Tom Stewart. I don't trust him anymore, unfortunately. It's probably more a fact of Chris Scott and the inevitable tags that come for him when he plays defence have kind of made him somewhat more irrelevant than people think. Okay, so these two were quite a shock. Josh Kelly and Goulden. Now, from the eye test, you'd think, because Goulden spends so much time on the wing, that he's going to score really well no matter what. But he does need those CBAs. When he's below 36, his average drops off. Like, his average score drops off dramatically. 14 points down. So keep an eye on what Dean Cox is going to do with that Sydney midfield. Because if Goulden drops off, he's not a pick. Like, if his CBAs drop off, I mean. I don't really rate him too highly, but Parrish is in here. People are talking about him. He's very reliant on those CBAs. So, Essendon's got that funny midfield mix where you don't really know who it's going to be, apart from Merritt. It looks like they're going to go with Durham, I think, and Caldwell seem to be getting a lot of midfield time towards the end of the year. if Parrish ain't getting these high CBAs, then this shows that he can't be picked. So he's a high risk. I get it that he can definitely score well. We've seen it before, but it needs to be those high CBAs, and he needs to be playing well. Rankin, I didn't expect to be this low down. I thought that he'd score better than this when he's not in the midfield, but he definitely needs the CBAs. So again, he's now a very risky pick, I think, because we just don't know what that Crom midfield's going to look like. I mean, no doubt he'll be in there, but whether he's getting 38% or not, that's the question. It's like, how high is his CBA going to be? So he may drop in price. Could be a case of he starts in the midfield for a couple of games and then spends some out and his price drops. That's what I'm banking on. Yeah, some of these guys, they're not terribly relevant, I guess. Riley Sanders, another one that I added. People are kind of talking about him as potential breakout. I just don't trust Bevo. He doesn't seem to rate Sanders as highly as everyone else. Sanders needs the CBAs looking at this, and I don't think he's going to get them under Bevo. So that rules him out, or at least makes him a very risky pick, which we knew he was anyway, but this kind of confirms it. George Hewitt, again, he's already getting fairly high CBAs, so 72%. He scores fine when he's getting them, but I just can't see him getting 72 every game. So, he's one to watch, but especially with Kennedy gone, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Just keep an eye on Hewitt, because we've seen that he can score really well. I think it was a couple of years ago. He was super consistent as well. Rosie, so I didn't include his injury games. So I mean the ones where he played the games, but he shouldn't have, like where he was clearly playing really injured, and it was Port's numpty medical team were to blame for those, but I didn't include them because it's not really fair. I swear I'm not biased at all. I do want to win Supercoach, so yeah, Rosie is probably a more risky pick than you might think, just based on this. He's already getting 63% CBAs. I can't see it increasing a hell of a lot or at all with that many mouths to feed. I mean, if he gets them, fine. He's gonna, this suggests he's gonna go like 113 at that, CBA percentage. So that's pretty good. Like that would make him a really good pick, actually. But we just got to be absolutely sure that he's going to get them, because if he doesn't, he drops off a cliff here, loses like 17 points on average. But yeah, behind Butters, I'm guessing that he'll be the next in line, so he should be alright. It's just, yeah, keep an eye on that. As I said, this is more like a risk assessment thing. It's not necessarily, blowing the lid off anything. Jai Simpkin, people have been talking about him a little bit. I don't think his CBA is going to go up. I think they're going to go down, and we can see what happens when he's below 52% CBAs. So he absolutely needs them. He's totally reliant on them. Do not pick him. You'll probably even see less of the ball in the half forward because of Parker, I would say. Clayton Oliver suggests he's very risky. We knew that. He's probably riskier for other reasons than this, because we know he's going to be the main man. Like, he's going to get bulk CBAs at Melbourne no matter what. He can't really play anywhere else. I mean, I think they trolled him off halfback before, and we know what he's like at his best. He's just a killer ball winner. So yeah, even though he's here, I don't think he's too risky for this reason. I would like to see this go up though this year. I mean, he's in my team currently, but again, he needs a flawless preseason. Philippou is riskier than I thought based on this. To be honest, when I looked at his scores, had a bit of a closer look, I don't think he's a sure thing as people were expecting. He's not exactly, it was a small sample size in that second half of the year, and he wasn't scoring unbelievably or anything. But this would suggest so with his 27% CBAs on average last year. When he's getting under 27%, he's just not scoring at all. I mean, he's not. Unfortunately, this takes into account his first half of the year, but he's not exactly scoring huge when he does get them either, if that makes sense. So you'd want this to increase. If you want him to be a safer pick or a viable pick, we're probably wanting to see like 40-50% CBAs, I would say. So he may be the one to fade instead of Smith or McRae. Who knows? I'm sure things will reveal themselves in the rest of the preseason. Matt Kennedy, I've talked about being an option. Well, maybe not an option, but just keep your eye on him because he's usually pretty good. Now, 32% CBAs on average at Carlton last year. When he gets the 32%, he's averaging 96.5. When he's under it, he's just not worth looking at. So, if we could see some kind of guarantee, say if Bevo come out and said Kennedy's going to be, I don't know, he's going to be in there. Say if Libber got like that last head knock or whatever and he's gone, and Kennedy takes Libber's spot, he would be a pretty good pick, I reckon, for the price that he is. Off the top of my head, I think he's around, 400k? Something like that. So if you picked him at 400 and he's averaging 96, he's probably not the worst pick because he's not going to be cheaper than that probably at any time of the year. And at 96 point average, he'd be top 8 mid, undoubtedly. So, yeah, a lot of water to go under bridge with that one, though. A lot of what ifs and stuff. So, yeah, he's down in this risky area for a reason. Jack Carroll, so he's gone to St Kilda. Maybe he gets a few more CBAs. I don't know. Obviously, St Kilda's midfielders, it's a lot weaker than Carlton's. But he was already getting 29% CBAs, which isn't too bad, really. And he wasn't really setting the world alight, so I wouldn't pick him. So, yeah, guys like Steele and Taranto, they're just inside pigs. They can't play anywhere else, really. Saligo, I've got to admit, I was pretty shocked to see him down this low. So, again, I've seen people talking about him as a possible breakout. I mean, some believe he had, like, a somewhat breakout year this year, but they think he can go to that next step again. With the way the Crom midfield is, 57% CBAs, like, it could easily go down. He can play wing and stuff, so that might not help him in terms of Supercoach. Yeah, huge discrepancy here when he's above and below 57%. So I wouldn't be banking on that Supercoach breakout if he's not increasing his CBAs. I mean, you need him to go higher than 96 anyway. So, yep, he definitely needs a big increase, and I can't see it happening. So Chera, 24 and 23 are here. He played the couple of games in 24. Can't really read too much into that. They're very contrasting here. So 24, if he didn't have the CBAs, he was completely useless. But in 23, which was his last full season, and he had a really good season, there's not much. Like, there's only the 3 points difference here. So, I think that's more the true reflection of the player he is, and that's what you'd be picking, is based on 23. The risk with him, obviously, is the injury and stuff like that. But, yeah, that gives me more confidence because I'm considering him for sure. Cogs, he takes the nice spot of being the most risky player in terms of CBAs. That's a massive discrepancy there. So yeah, if he's not getting 75% or above, and I don't know why you'd pick him given his injury history and stuff, but if he's not getting the 75, he's just horrendous. That's a high percentage. Now the last one, Peatling. Actually, no, he's not the last one. I just forgot that I skipped Jackson, and I'll get to that last. Peatling, so in full games was averaging the 58%, obviously, at GWS for CBAs. Now we can see here that 98% when he goes at 58% CBAs. 98 score. Sorry, this is going on too long. I'm starting to mix my words up. So yeah, he averages 98 when he gets 58% or above. Now that's great. That makes him a really good pick for his price. Yeah, it's good value. But the only problem is, again, with that Crom midfield, if he's not getting 58, he ain't scoring. So when he goes below that, his average becomes 62 and he drops off 35 points. So Peatling is a huge risk. I know a lot of people are hot on him. And look, I think he will get the CBAs. Otherwise, why would the Crom bring him in? That's the logic. But it is Matty Nix, and he's more Bevo-like than people think. Like, Maybe I'm biased because I am a Crom supporter, but you really notice it a lot if you watch their games every week. So yeah, proceed with caution with Peatling, but you know, if it gets to the practice games and stuff and he's just playing bulk mid, then I would confidently pick him. The last one I included is Luke Jackson, right? Now, obviously he's not a midfielder, but he is a ruck. And with Darcy seemingly looking fit and stuff now, I thought I'd include it just because I wanted to see, is Jackson a viable pick outside of the ruck? Well, no, he's not. He needs 52% CBAs. He's not going to be getting those, obviously, with Darcy fit. If Darcy goes down, though, he averages like 109 when he's above 52%. So that would obviously make him a good pick. If Darcy got a season-ending injury, Jackson would probably be the highest owned player in the game. I also included that because if this gets a decent response, I'm going to do it with the rucks as well and see which rucks can take a hit. If, you know, maybe if they have to play with a second ruck or something that takes a little bit of their CBAs, maybe who's going to be the most affected and who's not. But yeah, as I said, this is very time consuming to work out. So yeah, I think I'll only be doing that if this gets a decent response or whatever. So I don't know. I found it very interesting doing this, and I think it was a big help to me. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. And again, let me know in the comments if this is available somewhere else, because it's going to be pretty funny. I'm going to feel so stupid just given how long this took to work out. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you do get anything out of it, or if you can see anything that stands out in here that I haven't pointed out. But yeah, that's about it. I've talked long enough. I should have another video coming out in the next couple of days, maybe even tomorrow. And that will be based on defenders, who does better in wins and losses. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and tune in for the next one. And yeah, I'll catch you then.